Thanks again for coming out. I just wanted to say that I think this is a really important training. I thank Jonathan so much for coming. It's important that we all stay engaged in the processes. I thank Ryan for coming. He's our legislative representative. I'm happy to have him. I think that we'll all just kind of learn how to stay engaged a little bit better with our legislative process and be ready to be involved when the session gets going. We have some tools to be able to keep engaged in what's going on and respond appropriately. We had a real struggle last year with a few bills that were, taking away local powers or trying to, and we weren't ready. We didn't have folks like you all to call on to help us. So thank you for being engaged. This is Jonathan Adler. He's the executive director for West Virginia Association of Counties. He's the one who's been the voice for the counties for a long time, and he will continue to be. He's done a great job. And I'll let Stephen say a little bit more about that because he works with them a little more closely than I do.
Yes, so I want to say thank you guys all for coming. Really had a great meeting at the last meeting. I guess that was about a month ago, I think. And so just something that's going to hopefully continue. We're really happy in Hardee County to have very engaged citizens. That's a huge deal because we're all practicing democracy at the end of the day. That's what we're doing. Democracy is an experiment, and it's a working experiment, and that's what it's all about, is practicing it. You can't actually become better at it if you don't continue to engage in it. So having a county where there's engaged citizens is a huge deal. I want to thank Melissa. Planning Commission is sponsoring this event. I want to thank her for her input and for always being a hard worker and advocate for Hardee County. Also glad to see a couple of our planning commissioners with us, as well as our delegate, Brian. Thank you for coming this evening. I do really appreciate Jonathan coming. He's meant a great deal to me. He's very accessible. I've asked him many questions. So Hardee County is involved. We're heavily involved in the West Virginia Association of Counties. We go to all the events, or at least try to. We try to be engaged in that process. I asked him personally to come, and he agreed to, which I really appreciate. He's a wealth of knowledge. His job is to work for the counties at the legislative level. That is his job. So he is absolutely an expert in it. I want to welcome you, Jonathan. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Melissa, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight and being here to listen to me babble on this evening. I hope the presentation is worthwhile for you and you learn some things tonight. I do want to say that, kind of building on what Commissioner Sheetram said, Hardee County has a long history of just really great engaged citizens and public officials. I mean, I've been around for about 30 years or more. Worked for a former Governor Caperton back in the day, and back then Hardee County had leadership at the state level. Delegate Harold Michael, used to be commissioner too. But regionally, you had a lot of great leaders locally, and that's still going on. It hasn't changed any. And yes, my presentation, I have to change my presentation tonight because it was all going to be about best insults and how to bash your legislator. Fortunately, Douglas Ward is here tonight. Brian, please stand up. I know everybody knows you, but he really he has done a great job. He's not been at this too long. I think you're in your second term now. And he sits on the very powerful Judiciary Committee. And I can tell you every time I tune in or I'm there in person, he's always speaking up on almost all the bills and has a great interest in it. And certainly what it means to Hardee County, his district. So doing a great job. He's dedicated. As I said, a long line of public officials in Hardee County. He fits right in that line and is doing a great job. So thanks for being here tonight. So later on, for the rest of you, I do have the top 10 insults of the state legislature. But anyway. So again, my background, I was an aide for Governor Caperton. I traveled a lot around the state and spent some time over here. Got to know a lot of the local officials. And then I've been a corporate lobbyist. Anyway, I've been lobbyist in coal and oil and gas as well. So I know the business side of things as well as the public sector. And you have a tremendous courthouse here, led by Commissioner Sheetram and the other commissioners, certainly. They do a great job. They really do. And local government, I can be very opinionated about it, but I think one of the great strengths about local government at the county and city level too is it's not political. Really, they don't get political. You have problems, you have issues, and you work to solve them. It's not political mostly. It sometimes gets that way. But you see a problem, you want to find a solution, and that's really the great thing about it. When I get with my fellow execs across the country, in other states, we all share that same thing. We're so proud of that fact and grateful for that fact. And we feel like, what we do and how county officials conduct themselves needs to filter up. And we've seen that especially in Washington, just how bad and how broken it's been, unfortunately. And I don't think it needs to be that way. I think they can make some simple fixes to that make sure that they're doing the work on behalf of you all and fixing those problems instead of making everything political. We're getting too political today in this country. So hopefully that's the end of my soapbox. And if I offend anybody with what I say, I apologize. But I'm here to talk about how to interact with public officials, especially the legislature, and how you conduct yourselves, how you get heard, who the leaders are at the legislature, and how to get your point across, get your message across that's effective, and that they will listen and try to get you to an end result that you all like, that you support and appreciate, and so that's really what it's all about. I think if I could just encapsulate everything, you can go home if you want, okay, after I say this, but it's really true. It's really all about building relationships, okay? It's about building those relationships with your public officials at every level and keeping in contact with them, and staying positive and upbeat and supportive of what they do too. You're not going to agree with everything they do or the decisions they make, but they put themselves out there when they run for office. They put their name on the line, and so they didn't get into it just to get bashed. You hear all the time, the most thankless job, I think, in politics is being near school boards. And certainly they get beaten up all the time. They didn't join it to get beaten up all the time. They're trying to make decisions that are right for everybody. So always try to keep that in mind in the end, even if you disagree with what's going on. If your issue goes down, you still, in the end, there's still another day. The sun will come up tomorrow, and there's more to work on and more to find. So if you can find that common ground, never give up. Never give up on that. So my first slide tonight, say how to be heard, who, where to communicate, your legislature and your representatives, the process, the legislative process, and other organizations and allies that you may want to find to help you in your cause, your issues. So I use a quote here from Dale Carnegie, a lot of quotes here. Dale Carnegie, some of you know, back in the day, my father gave me his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it was a great book. Truly one of the best books I've ever read, and I think it's truly one of the largest selling books maybe of all time, and just chock full of great wisdom. And his whole thing was about, excuse me, just how you get along with people. You got to stand up and be a good public speaker, but make your points, get your points across, but to do so in a way that's not offensive to others, but is moving and energizing and all that. So one of the quotes that he says, when dealing with people, remember, you're not dealing with creatures of logic. That's kind of harsh, but he wrote this back in the 30s, 20s and 30s. But with creatures bristling with prejudice and motivated by pride and vanity, right? So we all want to feel good. We all want to feel good about ourselves and what we do. So don't be harsh, be complimentary, be understanding. When you make your points across, don't be personal in your arguments, be professional about it. You attract more flies with honey than vinegar. Very true. Very true. So be positive, be enthusiastic, whatever your issue is, be positive about it. Get your points across and do it with enthusiasm. So how to be heard. This, like the quote says, 90% of it is just showing up. Okay. So be seen. You're here tonight. That's great. You all show up for these events, these meetings. Steve had the meeting for the housing a couple weeks ago. He had a lot of attendees there too. That's 90% of it. It really is. You have to be seen. You have to be engaged. You have to be. You have to be. So what should you do elsewise? Write letters and emails. Yeah. Do letter writing campaigns. If you have an issue you're working on, do letter writing campaigns. Be organized in how you write those letters. You know, a lot of people use form letters. That's fine. But to me, it's more powerful if you have your own letters you write, your own message you're trying to get across. So people aren't turned off by form letters, but you also want to keep it concise. You want to keep them short, concise. You make your arguments, but get those letters out there. Make those letters and emails out there so your legislators, your officials hear you. Okay? Be specific. It's important if you can be personal with them, either in person and writing the letters, you know, ask personal questions. If you know things about them, about their children, or some success or things that they've had, or a compliment on some success they have. The legislator got some bill passed that was very important that we know about that. Hey, say congratulations, Brian. Well done on that. You know, I think Brian will like that. I think he will if he hears that. But they do, because again, as Dale Carnegie said, they're human. Okay, they want compliments. They want to feel good about the work they're doing because they're not doing it to get beat up. So, hold public events, tours, and open houses. Invite your target audience to come to you. So that's very important. I think that's a huge, huge thing. If you have, I know the issues tonight about the windmills, right? Invite them to your area, to your home. See where that's going to be. Those officials need to see it for themselves. It just makes it all that much more powerful to understand what you all are facing on that issue. Whatever it is, whatever the issue is, invite them to be there. Don't be afraid to invite them. They may not be there. They don't come to you, go to them. Go with photos, go with videos or whatever, you know, so they see that. They understand it. So hold these events, hold public tours, open houses, make everybody welcome, make them feel good. We've got great food and drink back here. That's what it takes. Make phone calls too. Absolutely make phone calls. Don't be afraid. The legislative website, which I hope to show here in a little bit, is a great website, great interactive website, has all the information you need about your legislators, their phone numbers, their emails. And if you get to know them even better, okay, maybe you'll get their private phone, their email, their cell email, things like that too. So not just their office ones, but their public ones, but their private ones too. Social media sites. If you set up social media sites, you're using Facebook or website, whatever, provide honest, accurate information. Okay. We know that today. Social media is a huge, huge problem. Okay. We don't know. A lot of times we see things, whether it's in the regular media or whatever, that's maybe not factual, a lot of disinformation, misinformation out there. For your own good, you know, whatever you're advocating for, make sure it's accurate and honest, that you're dealing with them truthfully. You got to build trust with your officials. It's a symbiotic relationship. And if you're not providing them with honest, truthful information, you know, they're going to turn you out. They're going to turn you off. You know, they're not going to listen. So that's very important. In your conversations, be honest and truthful about what you're trying to get across. Certainly today we've seen a lot of disinformation and things that's kind of working right now, but I believe in the end, people want truth. They want to see facts and honesty, and that's going to win out. You know, we'll get rid of that chaff and that stuff that's going on the side. You've got to be honest and upfront. Volunteer for campaigns. You know what? Brian is running a campaign. You like Brian? Volunteer, help him out. You know, if he needs to pass literature, make phone calls or things like that, whoever it is. I'm not in any level. Okay. This is again part of being seen out in the public. People will take you seriously. Your neighbors and friends see you out there working for that candidate or that issue or whatever. You're out there being seen. They respect that. You know, that means a lot. Personal experience. Okay. When I was growing up, I grew up in Weston, Lewis County, and my dad was the tip of the spear on trying to get the Stonewall Jackson Dam built, the lake, you know, the resort there now. And that was hard because we had to move a lot of families out that lived in that valley where the lake was going to be. And it was a hard thing, you know, and you create a lot of enemies and animosity on that. And he was willing to take that on. And he was kind of hard charging at times. I don't think he could say sometimes he wasn't nice about it, unfortunately, but he was a good man and he certainly cared very deeply. But he understood too this process I'm talking to you about now, about volunteering for campaigns, talking to your representatives, supporting them, talking to them, being out there for them when they call on him. And that paid off in the end. He got his friends and others, same thing. I spent a lot of time going door to door handing out flyers, on an issue, on that issue in particular. And the last time we had Congressman, he was a state senator, Bob Wise from Charleston, was running for Congress for the first time in his district. And he won in a landslide, but he lost one county. He lost Lewis County because my dad got everybody organized and galvanized, and we were out there working it, and he lost to Governor Congressman Wise's credit. He came to my dad's house to meet him, and they became good friends afterwards. And even to this day, if I see him, it's always Bob, and he's the nicest guy. He truly is, very heartfelt, very sincere. But, he took the time, he realized I lost that county. I don't want to lose that county again, even though I swamped everywhere else, because this issue was more important. So again, that's about building a relationship with somebody that was on the other side of the issue. And Bob changed his tune on it. He became a supporter of the lake and the dam and when it was built. And that was a tough issue, but I saw firsthand what that kind of grassroots organizing did work to make that happen. Yeah, families did lose out, no doubt about it. That was sad for them, and there's still some hard feelings in some cases. But it was one of those things: is it better for the community or not? My dad's whole thing was about flood control. That was about flood control. Weston flooded every year. Weston doesn't flood now because of that. So that was his whole reason for flood control in Weston. So you're volunteering, issue advocacy, charity. Okay, also charity, whatever it might be. Do those things too. And last but not least, okay, and this is probably the most important one. This is the most powerful one, which I think is sad, really. But fundraising, okay? You're going to have to give money. You're going to have to get organized. You're going to have to give to candidates. You're going to have to give to causes, because that's what moves the needle in Washington. That's what moves the needle in Charleston, okay? I don't give. Okay, I represent government, and I don't get. And there's been some pressure put on me, that maybe you need to form some kind of political action committee, and you need to give. And the county government needs to give or whatever. And I've talked about that with the cities too, and others. And some of my colleagues, in Virginia, for example, in Virginia, he does do that. It's a fairly new thing he's done, but he does that because money talks, as they say. So, yes. Find a way to raise funds. Get your voice heard that way too, because it does carry a lot of weight. It does. It does. Please, if you all have any questions or comments, I don't want to stop you. This is totally open. So if you have any questions right now, we can stop anytime. Okay.
Sitting in Virginia, the Virginia Association of Counties actually gives to the campaign.
Yeah, I don't know if I think what he did last year was, I think he just gave to the both the Democratic and Republican caucus. I think he gave maybe a little bit more to one than the other, but in Virginia right now, they're evenly divided. So he probably didn't. He probably just did, even. That's what he does. Okay, in my case in West Virginia, probably give a little more money to the Republican caucus. Just saying. What do you think? Is that a good idea? You won't say.
If I can just comment, I just realized after watching your first couple of slides how often how we get community here. And I wanted to say something for a couple of things. I'm probably the odd duck. I don't want anybody here to contribute to my campaign. If there's something, if you look at my spending history with running for office, I spent a total of $101 on my campaign for re-election. I'm a known quantity, folks. They either like me or they don't, and likewise with every candidate. But what Jonathan's saying is very true. To at least get to know them, and I learned long ago that those things are not left or right. You can find common ground on the issue. If it's something that offends my reasonableness or vice versa, if we're definitely at opposites, there's no common ground to be found. So long as there's civility, it's still a success. But if you have a question, I'm probably easy to read. If you have a question on a specific topic, find out. It's really easy to find out where I stand. I'll just tell you. And I don't, and it's not, and that may sound greedy, but I would rather be trusted for my, what do you call it, predictability, than, have somebody that wasn't quite sure. But everything else Jonathan was saying, rally around somebody that you feel comfortable with. If campaign help is needed, I know that Stephen's running a statewide campaign. I wouldn't know where to begin, and I recommend anybody that tackles such a thing. That takes a lot of money. Here in a small community, I was elected twice as the sheriff. If somebody had a question or concern or a problem, they simply called me at home. It was kind of Andy Griffith-like, and I love that aspect of my job. And and that still holds true with my job as representing you in the state house. I've made some good friends in here that have come to my aid in helping me to help address some of the problems they're facing. And it's a team effort. But anyway, with that said, Jonathan, I'm available to anybody, and I've got some other things that I probably could be doing. So, but I appreciate you, and I had the pleasure of serving on the board of directors with the West Virginia Association of Counties when we bought.
He's my favorite sheriff.
Anyway, hey, I'm just a phone call away for those that we're working on certain issues. And if anybody's got 10 minutes, 304-257-8547, my cell number. Get a lot of emails, and do not send form email. We sit there, and I had a couple of issues last year. I have 1,000 emails with the exact same title. So I went to I'm not very computer savvy, but I searched and created a list and deleted them all at once. And, it's not practical for somebody to do, hey, I get it. But if somebody in my community, even somebody that disagrees with my position, I'll respond back to them with a personal letter, even if I disagree, and state my position, so that everybody knows where I stand on the issue. Like I say, most things aren't that way, and it's tragic that our state or our federal government has got people turned against one another because of difference. That's the most disappointing part of this job. Anyway, I love this area, Jonathan. I appreciate you.
Thanks. Okay, so with that, how many legislators does it take to change a light bulb?
No, we're still debating. John.
Yeah.
One letter, form email.
Yeah.
I've had several legislators come back.
Yeah.
They don't read form.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's something to keep in mind.
That's one thing. And again, keep it short, really keep it short. They're inundated with so much stuff and information and things that when you make your point, you really can't be too long. Can't be too long. So.
But not an email, but they're just, using one form. Yeah. I just had several that have told me that. And it's a little harder, it's a little harder to send multiple if that is the case, but I do think it's not just crime that is saying that.
Yeah.
Multiple that have told me that.
Yeah.
Practice creatively.
Chat GPT, right? It's scary how well that works, by the way, if you haven't experienced that. I had a friend of mine one time, what he did was he said, tell me about Antarctica. And so the thing spit it out in a couple seconds. Boom. Okay, tell me about Antarctica as foghorn leghorn. Boom. Well, I'll tell you, it's cold in Antarctica. And he was blown away by it. He's like, oh my goodness. Yeah, it is. It is. So anyway, fun with AI.
One letter. I did that one time because I didn't know who to write to about what I wanted to say. And so I just hit everybody. And that was, the law. And I didn't hear back from anybody. So, but, being able to know who the contact about was sometimes vague.
Yeah. And we'll get into that. We'll get into that a little bit about who you contact at the legislature and how the process kind of works. So I don't want to repeat myself a little bit. I'm sure I will. But who do you go to? Your public officials, elected, appointed, community, county, state, and federal. So anytime anybody has an event, try to go to it, especially if it's federal officials. They love to have a crowd there. They love to have a crowd. That's what I did for governor. I set up events, okay? And so you want to have a crowd in there, right? So if you I read about Bobby Kennedy one time when he was running for president, and they had him in this huge ballroom in a hotel. And man, it was like there was hardly anybody there. So the last minute, the guy said, we're going downstairs to room A. Room A was tiny. Got all those people in room A, man. It was like standing room only. And so the candidate comes in, Bobby Kennedy's like, wow, what a great turnout. This is awesome. This is great. So they like turnout. You want to show up. You want to show up. Your non-government organizations, NGOs, right? You know what those are. Like, for example, here, I guess the Potomac Highlands Conservancy is one, here, there's many others, Audubon Society nationally, World Wildlife Fund, things like that. Your neighbors, okay? It's good to talk to your neighbors about it. You don't want to, talk their ear off and stuff, but at least let them know that you're interested in this thing. And just, if they care to learn more about it, you're there to talk to them about it. But, they want to know, it's good for them to know what's going on in their communities too. So they're up to speed at least. So they know they can rely on you to tell them what's going on. So the media, newspapers, TV, radio, electronic media, social. Yeah, absolutely. And be responsible in the use of it. Needless to say that, but really, social media is just, every day we hear something awful that's on Twitter, X, and different things, and Facebook. And it's just, we're getting drowned out. And we're not singing from the same hymnal. Okay. And that really bugs me. If we want to get things going right again in this country, we're all going to have the same basic set of facts to work from, right? We can have different ideas about how to solve those issues, but at least we can agree on what the issue is. Okay, now we're getting to the point where we're just like, alternative facts, right? Remember hearing about that? Okay. All right. School, secondary and higher education. You get an opportunity to go to school, even if it's just reading to the little ones, just reading the book. You're out there, you're talking, you're being seen. Maybe you chat up the teacher about something you're working on doing. But take those opportunities, even if the issue itself, take those opportunities to go to your school and speak that issue. Apologies for that as well too. And your own events, your own events. Set up your own events. So I've got to move my screen around here a little bit. But anyway, the legislature. You can see there's the numbers, the main numbers for the House and Senate. Okay, 340, 3200 is the House Clerk's office, and the House Clerk can connect you to any delegate you want to, if you don't have their number. Okay, the Senate 357, 7800. That's the Senate Clerk. They kind of organize their office staffs. They kind of organize the two chambers as to how their daily operations work, and they have provide the information daily on the website and things like that. So
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is this presentation going to be available?
Yeah, I'll make sure. I'll send it out again. If you guys get copies of it, you have emails too. I'll make sure. I did have to add a few things. The handout I sent to you, I did add a couple slides too that you don't have in there. I apologize, but anyway, but I'll make sure you get the most up to date one. And it's something too. Really, I can add to it. There's so much to this. There's so much to it. Okay, so the leadership in the House of Delegates. Okay. A man named Roger Hanshaw from Clay County, which is border county to Kanawha County. That's Roger's email and the office number that he has to his office. I'll get into it a little bit. But what the names I put on this page are really the most important people in both chambers. Okay, they're the ones that have the most power. Now, each committee chairman certainly has a lot of power too, but these are the folks that really run the show in the two chambers, and that are the ones that you really want to try to go to the top. Those are the ones. Majority leaders, a man named Eric Householder. He's from Berkeley County. Eric's running for state audit. Okay, so he's in the campaign for that. A lot of people. You're going to see a big change in the legislature in 2025 because a lot of people are moving on to bigger offices, better offices, and some are moving on to the best offices, which happens to be the county commissioner's office. I have to say that, Steve here. I'd say it to any county office. But anyway, we do have, I think, three members are going to be running for county commission now, I think. So a lot of people are leaving. You're going to have a huge turnover as far as the leadership at the top of their various offices. Finance chair is a man named Vernon Chris from Wood County. Vernon, I like Vernon a lot. I like all these people. I really do. They're not easy to know sometimes, but they really all try their best. They really mean it. And Vernon really likes to see people in Charleston. So that's the one thing I didn't tell you, but they will tell you. Okay. If you have an issue here, if they don't see you, you're part of the faceless majority or whatever, they don't know you, it's faceless. So it's like that issue. Sorry, I don't know those people. I know, Bob Smith over here that comes with a fundraising check or whatever comes to my office and talks to me about this issue, but I don't know them. So if you can find the time to get down to Charleston to see the people in person, it really is very important. Very important. So I highlighted two committees that really, I think the issues we talked about, Melissa can give me the bill numbers again. I'll try to do a search online, but that had to do with the wholesale generators and the windmills and the solar panels. I believe that was only single referenced, which means when it's presented to the speaker, he will direct it to whatever committee he wants to work on. So when I say single reference, he just sends it to one committee to work, pass out. Then it comes back to the full house. Okay. Now the double reference, it goes to two committees. So the other one I highlighted was government organization. So sometimes I think that bill might work for government organization as well too. So he might do a double reference and say if it goes to government organization first, then it goes to judiciary and then out. The two most powerful committees are finance and judiciary. Okay, finance handles all the funding, finances. So a lot of say in bills and what happens and what's going to be funded and what's not. It's the most powerful one. Judiciary, a co-equal a lot of the time, most of the time, really, because they handle a lot of the legal issues, right? The lawyers are going to have their say about how things should work. And so we've been blessed. We've had a really good judiciary committee chairs over the years. Truly have. And so the chair right now is Moore Capito. He's running for governor. So he's going to be moving on too. He's one of, I think, 4 Republicans that are running right now. There may be a couple others, but the 4 main ones. He's one of the 4 main ones. Government org chair is a guy named Chris Phillips from Barber County. Really, really nice guy. Again, he's very approachable. And I think he's close by Barber County, so he would know about some of the issues going on here too. Your House of Delegates roster. Okay. If you want to see the full list of the members, that link will take you to the roster on the website. So you go through everybody, they're listed alphabetically, and you can see everybody, their contact information and stuff to get the roster. Now I put Brian's name on there. He's your Hardy County delegate, no doubt about it. When an issue pops up, you want to go to your delegate. You want to go to Brian first. Okay. You want to, whether or not, he's active on it, whatever, you don't stop there. You go to others too. You look at if you have a bill up, okay, you look to see who the sponsors are of that bill. Say, Delegate Smith and Delegate Jones. Okay. So you want to go see the sponsors and talk to them about that bill and give them your views on it. Why or why not it's good. Okay. So you talk to them, you work with them. Wherever the speaker sends that bill, whatever committee, let's say he sends it to judiciary, you look up everybody. I'm going to get into this in a minute. I'm sorry, but anyway, you go to that committee and you look at all the members there and you'll contact them. So it's just kind of, it's a process. That's how these things work. But you want to try to go to Brian first, okay? Give him that chance, that opportunity to talk about it, get to know it. And Brian really is, he's very sincere. You can't fake it, okay? He's sincere about his representation here with you all. He's a really great guy. I really like Brian. You know, I can say that about most of them, but he really is. So please know that he's very sincere about it. I mean, he stopped me in Wheeling a couple of weeks ago to talk about the windmill siting issue. So really, he's a good man. I think I didn't want to make him feel uncomfortable tonight, but no need for him to. But anyway, now in the Senate, you have the Senate president. They basically, have the same powers in the House too, as far as the Senate president and the Speaker, where bills go, where they run. Craig Blair, he's from Berkeley County. He's up for re-election next year. He might be in a really tough race. A lot of talk about that. I think there's 2 other people running right now. A lot of nervousness about that. I think a lot of people want to keep him there in that seat. But he's up for re-election, so there could be a change there. Majority Leader Tom Takubo, he's a doctor. He's in Charleston. He's very well respected, very nice guy, very approachable, very sincere about his work, very hardworking. Finance Chair Eric Tarr from Putnam County. He's a very hard charger, very ambitious, very eager, has a lot of ideas, very smart. He really understands the numbers. He likes to get in the nuts and bolts of things. He can be, he can be difficult. He can be hard sometimes. He and the governor don't see eye to eye sometimes, and he sometimes will poke at the governor a little bit in public. If you've seen that every now and then. But he's a very strong chair, and he cares very deeply, no doubt about it. Judiciary Chair Charlie Trump from Morgan County, been a great chair. Really, a lot of people rely on Charlie for a lot of things. He's running for Supreme Court justice, and there's a question of whether or not he's going to step down before the session begins or not. He may have to file, and if he does, he's going to have to step down. So there's some questions about that, whether or not Charlie's going to be chair this year. Maybe he won't be. And if he's not, it's going to be a guy named Ryan Weld, who's from the Northern Panhandle in Brooke County. Ryan's a relatively young guy. He was running for Attorney General. And I'll tell you, I supported Ryan. I did. I liked Ryan. He's a good guy, but he backed out last week. Decided not to run. A few other people were running for that office. And it just, I guess the cards were stacked against him a little bit, so he decided to step down. But I think Ryan's going to be the Judiciary Chair in the Senate. And he does a very good job. He's very conscientious, again, very approachable, nice guy, very thoughtful. Your GovOrg chair is a man named Jack Woodrum from Summers County. Jack was a county commissioner. Okay, so he was a former county commissioner. He understands county government. He's been very good to work with. He really has been very good at open door policy, looks out for county government, and really a good man. He's done a good job. He's made his mark early on, and somebody that he's good to his word. Brian mentioned that earlier too. I do want to follow up on that. He said he'd like to just be direct with you guys about where he stood on an issue. And that's really important. If he's not going to be with you on something, I respect somebody that's going to tell me that right up front. Okay. I don't like somebody that says, yeah, they're with you, or, well, it could be, they're hemming and hawing a little bit. But the person that says, yeah, I'm with you, and they turn around and go against you, they're the worst. They're the worst. And that happens quite a bit. So I respect the ones, if they're not going to be with me, at least they'll tell me up front. That's, I appreciate that. And so that's a good thing. Now, again, the Senate roster, you see all your Senate. Yeah. Go ahead.
Just a quick question. Does the West Virginia state legislature work like our federal does on trying to get a bill through? Does it have to go through both?
Oh, yes, right.
Okay.
It does.
So we're looking at it pretty much.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The process thing. Okay. You guys have seen Schoolhouse Rock, right? How to become a bill. Honestly, that's the greatest thing. That is the process. That's how it works. I would have played it tonight. It's just great. It's just great. It really, I learned it when I was a kid. Wow. Now there's more to it. There is more to it. There's a lot more little tricks of the trade that, for example, there was a bill. I think it was the wholesale generator bill. It died in committee. In Judiciary Committee, there was a tie vote. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of history on this issue. It died in tie vote. Okay, it's gone. So we're like, and some people are like, phew, And I think it was on a Friday. if I'm not mistaken. That vote was taken. Well, then next thing you know, within an hour, my lobbyist for me is a fantastic lobbyist. And, they're going to do a motion to reconsider on Monday. They're going to bring it back for another vote because they're trying to get those people to vote against, vote for it. So motion to reconsider. Sometimes you think the bill may have died in committee. Well, I've got that opportunity to bring it back. A lot of different tricks. There's some that will bring it on the floor. Members will try to pull a bill out of committee, which does happen. If something is jammed up in committee, it's not going anywhere. There have been full votes on the House floor to move that bill out of committee and take a vote on the floor. That's happened. That's happened recently. So there are things like that do happen. So you always have to keep on your toes. It's a 60-day session, and it happens fast. And sometimes in my case, it doesn't happen fast enough. It doesn't go by fast enough. But it is. It's like it's a marathon sprint, as one of my friends said. Yeah. Yeah, 100 in the House of Delegates, and then 34 in the Senate. And what the House did a couple of years ago, they changed it to, like Kanawha County, I think had 7 delegates. Okay. Now you only have 1, not per county, they have all these districts. So you have 1 per district. So there was 1 district they had, I think, 4 delegates. Okay. No more. You just have 1 delegate per district is how it works. So 100 even. And, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. A little bit too much power in Kanawha County. There was. So your 2 senators here represent you, Randy Smith and Jay Taylor. Jay's in Taylor County, and Randy is is Randy Grant or Tucker? I think Tucker County. Yeah. I like Randy a lot too. I mean, he cares. He's conscientious. He's had a bill up in the legislature to give the county back money through called amusement tax. He was trying to get passed, but he's not a fan of windmills. He hasn't been. Now I don't know about the siding, maybe a different issue than the actual taxes that are received from it. He's not a fan of how the taxes are. They have this thing, it's called a salvage value tax. Very, very, very low tax that doesn't bring in much money to the county at all. And that was always Randy's view. What are we doing this for? This company's not doing anything. They're just getting a tax break by having these, that was always his thing. So Randy's somebody to talk to about this, and go to him about it. I don't know where he is per se on it, but I'm just saying he's your local rep. And I think he's very, again, like Brian, he does care about his district. He does, so yeah.
Yeah, Randy came out for the turbines on the Grant County, Mineral County, and then halfway through, he wrote a letter to the Public Service Commission and said, take my letter off.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So I don't want to speak for any member either to say how they are. So, please don't, I'm going to apologize right now. That's one of my cardinal rules that I do with anybody, whether it's my members. I have some members sometimes they're saying, we're speaking on my behalf or saying I said this or that or whatever to a senator or delegate. And I know. And I would go straight to them and say, nobody speaks for me. I speak for myself. I'll tell you what on this thing. I'll tell you what's going on. Nobody tells you where I am. So that's a really cardinal rule. And it's worked out well. It's worked out well. It hasn't happened very often. I've had a couple times where I've had some members that have jacked up bills, and I'm still on the outs. Well, there's one in particular, and I'm just beside myself. It just caused everybody else so many problems. But anyway, that's just my own personal view. I'm sorry. I've been in on a couch talking to a psychologist about that. So those are the main chairman of the committee. So 2024 session starts Wednesday, January 10th and runs through Saturday, March 10th, ends at midnight. Stroke of midnight is when it ends. And then the parties begin right at mid 12:01. But anyway, 60 days. And just to give you a little bit of taste of what's happened the last couple of years in the Senate, what President Blair likes to do is for the first day of the session, he has taken all the bills. They'll have carryover bills from the year before. Okay. So all the bills that are going to be entered into the record right before the session begins. Not all of them are, but some in the beginning are. He takes all those bills that passed the year before. They immediately pass them out of his body and send them over to the House of Delegates on day one. So, the House has all these bills the Senate passed from last year, and, House can do what it wants, yay or nay on stuff. There's some bills that are important, some that won't be, but it's just something right immediately they put the onus on the House. You better pass these bills we passed out of here because you guys killed it last year, kind of thing. So probably going to do that again. His thing is, he likes to believe in a.
I have a question about rules.
Yeah.
I know the House rule, you're supposed to read the bill 3 times.
Yeah.
Before and then it goes to committee.
Right.
I think on the Senate side, I'm not sure. Do they have the same rule?
Yeah, they have to read it 3 times. What happens is it immediately goes to committee, but when it comes back out for the vote, okay, by the full body, that's when it's read 3 times.
But they suspended some of those rules. Did they not?
Right. You usually see that in the last few days. The reason why they'll do that, maybe there's something very important. Let's say they're trying to get funding for the jails, for example, and the bill was late coming out, getting to the floor, and they've got maybe that day to pass it out, get it done. Well, everybody supports it. They want to get it done. So it'll be up on 3rd reading. They'll say, suspend the rules, read the bill 2nd time, suspend the rules. Okay. First, it's after first reading, 2nd reading, 3rd reading. Okay. Time to vote on the bill. And they'll do that. So they do suspend the rules. They suspend the rules this past year in a lot of things because they got a super majority. Okay. What they did during the year, some committees were meeting and they suspended the rules where they didn't have to they weren't public meetings. And they were fashioning bills they wanted during the special session, which ran, I think, in August. They had a special session where I think they passed 34 of 45 bills. They had 45 bills they introduced. They passed 34 of them, I think, is what happened. Not to get down that rabbit hole, what happened, but that's what they were doing because they have a super majority. They can suspend rules a lot easier to do something a lot more fast.
It's difficult if we are trying to be citizen advocates of an issue, and we're watching. And we talk about the bulletin board and the track and stuff. And we were trying to get those letters out to people about how we feel about an issue. But the rules have been suspended. Now we're going to have a vote on the House floor and the Senate floor. And it's hard to change minds 100 people in the House. It's a lot easier if you can do it in a committee.
Right. It's now that's rare. Okay, it's rare that happens. Almost all bills go through the lengthy process, so there is time. Where it does get difficult sometimes is when you have, let's say, House Judiciary, for example, they will meet at 8 a.m. on Mondays. Okay, and sometimes the agenda isn't out until right before the meeting begins, so you don't know what bills they're going to be running. So you're scrambling. Oh, my bill is up, or I fed 4 bills. So I'm trying to get the word out. Hey, call in or watch, what's going on, but you're just kind of scrambling to get ahead of it. So I'm gonna go through that with you here in a little bit, but what you need to do as far as citizen advocates, citizen watchdogs, each morning, and you can do it the night before too, okay, to see if it's updated. A lot of times it won't be until the morning. You will go to what's on the main page, on the main page, you will see down below, they will have these tabs on the bottom. And one of them is called bulletin board. So you'll click on that. I'll try to do it here. Well, you can't see it. I'm sorry. Anyway, when you click on that, it has a House and Senate tabs. Okay. So you'll see that. And then it'll be committee schedules for both sides. So you'll click on that and it'll have all committees that meet that day. Okay. Then the committees on that page, when you jump to that page, each committee should have a link. Okay. It should have a link where you can go there to their page and see what their agenda is. They'll have a little tab say agenda. You click on that, you can see what's running. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes that link is grayed out. So you're going to have to be over there in person to see what's running the agenda that day. And it's just, I don't think there's, they want to limit time sometimes, depending on what they're running. But, sometimes it's just the people working the website just have too much to do. They're not getting it done. They just can't get it done. Sometimes the links aren't there to work to see. So there is that. But I think overall, I think they do a very good job, and the people can really see what's going on. You can follow it. So you go there and you see that. Now, the other thing you do is for that day, they both go in at 11 o'clock, okay, after the morning session of the committees meet. They both go in at 11 o'clock and they start their day of bills that are up before them if they reach the floor. So what you do, the list for the House is called the special calendar, okay? They have a special calendar and then they have a calendar. But in the House, you don't click on the calendar, you click on special calendar, okay? In the Senate, you just click on calendar in the Senate, okay? And the Senate will, everything will populate as to what bills are running that day. What they do in the House is they use the calendar as kind of like a limbo land, okay? Where they will put bills in there sometimes. They don't want to run it. They just stick it there for a while. Say it's up. It's had their 2 readings. They're going to wait and they'll pull it out one day. The Rules Committee will decide to pull it out on one day, and then they'll run the bill on the floor and they'll vote on it. So that's what calendar does. So you really are more interested in special calendar in the House, calendar in the Senate. So the other really, really good thing that makes this great for you for public access, on the main page again, okay, when you pull up www.legislature.gov, in the lower left-hand corner, there's a thing that's called live video audio. Okay, so you can click on that. Then it takes you to another page that has a listing of all the committees that are meeting that day. The Senate, the main committees in the Senate, their rooms, they have cameras. So you can watch the proceedings too. It's pretty cool. House hasn't done it. Okay. They have a camera in the main chamber. But for the committee rooms and stuff, they don't have cameras up for whatever reason. But the Senate, you can actually watch. The House, you have to listen to, okay, except when they're on the floor. But you can follow along. You have your committee agenda in front of you. So if you pull up the Judiciary Committee, you've got it there. And they try to go in order, You have to listen, though, carefully, because sometimes they will skip a bill. Sometimes, many times, we've stopped a bill from running because we had a problem. Oh, no. There's we've got to work on this. And so the chair will be very, gracious, and he'll pull it that day or something with the understanding he may bring it back, depending on what kind of deal we're trying to work behind the scenes to say, to fix a bill. Okay. They're very good about that, by and large. They really are. So that's what happens sometimes. You got to watch, when they're running the bills, but they try to do it in order. But a lot of times they'll jump around. So, any questions? I know this is where it gets a little weird and confusing. I get that. So,
Yeah. What would be the main benefit of actually going to housing and meeting?
being seen again, being seen and talking to them about your issue, so they know you. So there's Annabel. I know what her issue is. She talked to me about it. So she's here, and they appreciate that too. Okay, they do. In my case, if I don't show up for a lot of times, I should have a corner office in the House Judiciary sometimes. I'm always sitting in the House Judiciary. It switches. Sometimes it can be in the Senate. But anyway, if you're seen, they appreciate that because they know that you care. You're here. You're taking the time to be here, especially a member of the public. So that carries a lot of weight. It does. So that's why.
And some of us are in the grassroots, all this does it matter to them if they actually have a like this and say we're a part of this group, or is it better to just be a citizen?
Oh no, I think absolutely. Strength in numbers, right? Absolutely. You want to be a strength in numbers. So yeah, you're part of this group. You're part of this group.
Part of the effect of the raw milk herd chairs.
What's that?
The raw milk herd chairs. Mia Creamer, I don't know if you remember that. It's almost single-handedly formed a group.
Yeah.
And almost single-handedly turned the legislature around on her chair.
Yeah.
Just raw milk. She just kept kind of just at them, and they were almost got to the point go away. She's like, no, don't go away. You just kept on, and they find.
Yeah. No. Happens all the time. You have a strong personality that's always there, and they get known, they're seen, and they're always working it. They're always pushing. So yeah, the squeaky wheel, right?
Well, then I think there's value in our legislative representatives knowing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Part of keeping them honest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But then the other end of that is, if you're not happy about what they've done, you got to hold them accountable. Okay. That a lot of times, I mean, I'll give you a good example. Teachers. Okay. Teachers went on strike several years ago. Okay. The primary, they took out their benches in the primary. They took out the sitting Senate president. Okay. So he was lost, but there are others they went after. So what they do in the general, they kind of forgot. They kind of sat down. So they only were good for the primary. The general election, they didn't show up. So they lost out a lot of races, if they wanted to win. So you got to have, the other end of it. You got to follow through. You got to keep after it. You got to be, So it happens all the time. Yeah.
Good question. The last effort, the legislation passed on the wind turbine issue. I wrote dozens of letters. They were customized individually. Probably a little too lengthy, but detailed issues. And believe it or not, I got some personal responses, which I was quite surprised because when I write the feds, I get a standard form letter. And one in particular stood out. He said, "Thank you for providing so much information. Now I know how to vote." And I found that statement a little interesting. How many of them have a clue what they're voting?
Well, I've got to tell you, I don't know if he might be willing to come over here, but a guy that is a commissioner right now in Marshall County is a former delegate, Mike Farrow is his name. And Mike always, Mike, what he does during we have prep school for new officials, county officials that come in. Mike has been the past few years. Matter of fact, this presentation was Mike's, okay, and I just kind of took it and changed it a little bit. So he did a lot of this. But Mike will tell you, okay, he said, I was a delegate. He said, honestly, most of the stuff, I really didn't have the time to know what I was voting on many things, so it really took somebody sitting him down and saying, this is important, Mike, and here's what this is. And he would appreciate it. So I'm sure that letter was, so they do, education is great for them because it is, it's hard, it's hard in anything. I mean, I had to my knowledge is only like this deep many times on things. Okay. I mean, that's just because I'll be hit with so many things. I mean, it's sad. I'm telling on myself here, but I mean, there's a lot of time I can get too in depth on stuff. My sister works in Washington and same thing with her too. She worked for years. She worked for Senator Byrd and is now a lobbyist. And she represented Cobalt. Okay. Cobalt's nowhere in America. Okay. But her firm got this client. She was their principal for it. And Cobalt was mainly, I think, in Scandinavia is where it was. So she was charged with, she had to learn about Cobalt, all about Cobalt, everything, So she was like educating herself in a way, which is fun. You're learning about new things. But, how much, because she has so many clients, how much can she really, dive into it? So we rely on you. Okay. We rely on you to help me. You're educating me too. All right. You're educating me so I can be more knowledgeable and be able to speak more about these things and speak better. And that really, I will go back to that because it happened last year, another issue. And I couldn't speak to it. My thing was, I need people from the community to come speak because they will carry a lot more weight than before. And I get it. I understand. You're intimidated, right? You're going to Charleston, you're seeing these people, and you're intimidated, you're nervous in front of them, and are you going to embarrass yourself or are you going to tick them off, But they, in my constituent case with the county officials, they tell me all the time, I don't want to see you. I want to see a county official. I want to see the elected official talking to me about this because they do know about it or it affects them. You're the mouthpiece, but I'd rather hear from them. But where I get, problems sometimes and they understand it. I had a county clerk who was my president a few years back. She was great. And she spent many, many years. She would go down to Charleston. Okay. She knew how to lobby. She knew how it worked. Okay. She was great. But that's when they were running some bills, like say 8 o'clock in the morning. It was boom. Oh, there's that bill. Jan's 3 hours away. She can't make it down. She can't do anything. So we're scrambling, trying to find somebody, So she's like
telling me whatever it is. I mean, that's part of the problem too, So the way the time is, and because we've got 60 days, we're compressed, there's only so much you can do. But that's what they want to see. I mean, they want to see the person affected by this more than anything. That speaks volume. It does. So I will go on to we talked about the committee pages. There is that committee page, and you can go down again, and you can get familiar with. You want to see where all the committees that Brian is on. You can go to his own. He's got his own link. Tells you all the committees he's on, but all the committees will tell you who's on what. You have good representatives around the area too. JD Hott, I think Grant County. JD's a good guy. He works hard. He's a smart guy. He's somebody you can go to regionally. You want to branch out from Brian, you go regionally. You go to JD. You go to New Hampshire County's new. Hillenbrand.
Very good.
He's very good. He's very conscientious, and he wants to be up to speed and out there too. You can go to him. So people like that. Gary Howe from Mineral County, who's really into economic development. So they're all, they're all approachable, and so regionally you want to go to those people too, your region. The other tabs that you want that are really important that you want to follow during the session, of course, is if you have a bill that you're tracking. Okay, I set up a bill tracker. Okay, and I do it I do individual for each office, and then I do a main one for myself. I can't imagine there are not too many groups that follow more bills than I do. They just aren't, So it's like, man, it's a chore, it's a chore. And I have a guy who helps me that's probably the best thing I ever did was to get Chris to help me out. Chris was a longtime staffer in the legislature. He has great relationships. He's a great guy to begin with. And he understands the process so well. He knows all the tricks of the trade too. So he really understands it, and he's always like, always watching. I could see maybe 2 ways out of something. He literally will see 5 or 6 different ways to approach something. And the guy's he's a computer. He is. But so you go, you see what the bill number is, Senate Bill 757 or whatever. You can go to the status page, type it in, and boom, it goes there. Okay, so you can see the bill in front of you. You can read through it. It changes. Okay, so say it passes out of committee. Most likely that bill will be called a committee substitute. So instead of going to the original version of that bill, you have what's committee substitute. So you'll see it. You'll have original and have committee substitute, sub. So that's the one they're working on from there. And at the end, when a bill passes, so what passed, okay, it's called enrolled. It's the enrolled version of the bill. A lot of people get confused sometimes. I'll get a phone call. Somebody said, well, they left that language in there, blah, 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 blah. No, they didn't. Yeah, they did. I can see. I'm reading it right here. You're reading committee substitute. That didn't pass. They passed the enrolled version, which has that language taken out. So it does. It gets confusing. There's a lot to it, but that happens quite often. So the other one is there's a tab that says state law. Okay, that's the state. That's the code, right? That's the Constitution. That's all the stuff they're passing that goes in. That's the language verbatim about what code is there. So you can see what law is. You have questions on something. It's right there in black and white. Sometimes you may have a lawyer to help you understand it, but state law, the code, it's right there. All the chapters in the Constitution, you can go through that and it's fun reading. It's fun reading. Yeah, it's fun reading. But it's a great tab. I mean, it's great to have that right there at your fingertips. You can see the state law in front of you. It's a great website. It's a great website. I think if people understood that more and used it more, it could really change a lot of things about how things are operated. So again, I went through the major committees: finance, judiciary, there's education, health and resources, government org. Finance and judiciary, again, are the two most important, two most powerful ones. You have several minor committees. You got energy, economic development, banking, and insurance. You'll go through that list of all the committees on there. Most committees, they don't meet. Truly, they might meet once or twice, and that's it. There might be some specific bill that somebody's entered that committee needs to speak to and vote out. But once it gets past, the halfway point, and certainly past the 40-day limit, those committees usually don't meet anymore. They may just meet to, hold hands or something. I mean, they don't meet. It's judiciary and finance that meet, and government org and health and resources. Really, it's a huge lot of issues going on with Child Protective Services right now and DHHR. So that one's a major committee. A lot of stuff going on there. But by, you'll have 4, 5, 6 committees that are fairly regular, and the rest just aren't going to meet. So if you see something in one of those minor committees, you're like, okay, that probably not going to go anywhere. If you call me and I can check on something too, I can say, yeah, that bill's probably dead, probably not going. If it's something you want, you have to find a different way. Go to your delegate senator and say, hey, I'm really interested in this. Can there's something you can do? Can you bring this up in the committee? Okay. And sometimes committees can create bills. That's one of the tricks they can do too. They can create a bill in committee. They can just create it right there. So if it's a bill you like, and the one is dying somewhere, that another committee can just pick it right up. So now we're gonna take this bill up and we're gonna create it and call it Bill 512. So they can do that too, and that happens. And sometimes, very rare occasion, the whole body can do it as well. That doesn't happen very often. But so there's a lot of things committees can do, a lot of power that the various chairs have to say what's going to pass and what isn't going to pass and what's going to run. Yeah.
Question for you. Do you have any sense of where bills come from? In my room, what happens? It cuts into uniform laws, like the probate committee and so forth. We're trying to stay, kind of current with what other states are doing and so forth. I mean, is it that? Is it just stuff bubbling up?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I think when groups like yours would get together, my group, the county officials, we decided on last month. We had a meeting to say what our agenda was going to be for the year, what we wanted to see, issues that we try to write bills for. Okay, so each group, just the assessors, county clerks, circuit clerks, all of them, they all have their own items, laundry list of things they want to see passed. But we'll only endorse 4 or 5 of them to say that we be willing to work on. In my case, what happened a few years ago, and I'm really grateful for this, my president at the time, as a sheriff, said, we're going to change it this year for Jonathan. Yeah, each of our groups are going to have, our bills we want to run, but he's going to focus on 2 or 3 issues, 2 or 3 items. And that's what his charge is going to be, to try to get that stuff done, try to get it passed. But there's so many special interest groups, so many different things, from the different committees right there, all the committees, all those interest groups and those committees, they will all have their own issues that they want fixed and they want bills for. So that's how they bubble up. Or it could be just from a community, like the Schoolhouse Rock. We want school buses to stop at train crossings. Okay, so they'll do a bill. So that, yeah.
Professional.
Yeah.
And or surveyor, and small identified using bills and then try to find sponsors for those.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's hard to draft. It's actually hard to draft legislation. So it seems like it'd be helpful if you had a group that's
right.
Just working
Right. Yeah, and you want to as well. That's the other thing. You got to be talking about this way before the session begins. Okay, you just have to. So you've got to be talking, 6 months more ahead of time if you know something's going to happen. You can't just wait until November, December. My thing's frustrating for me a little bit, but we don't set our agenda until the 1st of October. And that's late a lot of times. We've tried to change that. It's hard for our folks to meet any sooner, really, because we're all busy. Every group is busy. Summertime is time for vacation and that stuff, and again September is So, what you'll see too, just another fact of life. An issue may stick around for 3-4 years, but if it's still around, 9 times it's going to pass one day. It usually passes. Now, many don't. But if you see something that's going to be around and it comes back next year, it comes back the year after that, it's in that pipeline where it's finally one day it's going to see the light and it's going to pass.
Or die.
Or die. Yeah. I mean, there was some that just, right. There's some that just, oh, we're never going to do this, but usually it's the ones that I see that like, I'm scared of that I don't, they're the ones like, oh, that's coming. Oh man, I'm going to hate when that thing passes. So anyway, so let me see here. Major committee chairs. Oh man, okay. I'll talk a little bit about this. This is something that Commissioner Farrow added. He talked about committee chairs. I've mentioned that. They decide what bills are going to be taken up in their committees. Okay. So the speaker can send a bill to their committee, but if the committee chair doesn't like the bill the speaker sent, well, he didn't have to run it. He or she, I'm always saying he, I apologize, but he or she will not run it if they don't like it, So very powerful in their own right. They'll only run bills that want passed are either caucus bills or majority party bills. So that's another key thing that you need to keep in the back of your minds too. The folks at the legislature, they don't want problems, okay? They want things to go smoothly as possible. So the bills they run are going to be things that all or most in their caucus, their party, which is the Republican Party, okay? So they control everything. So it's something that they have almost unanimity on. Those are the bills they're going to run, okay? They don't want problems. They hate problems. Problems are good, okay? If you got a grassroots and you're fighting something because you want to cause problems, right? You want to stir it up, okay? Because then they're like, oh, we don't want this problem. We don't want this, So that's really how they work. They don't want problems. They want stuff to pass through quickly and easily without pain. And they can stand up at the end of the session. So we did great things for West Virginia this year. We're all that way, right? Human animals, we don't want things to be too difficult. We want to get through things, not have any trouble. So that's the kind of bills that they'll run. So anyway, yeah, the member votes usually, but sometimes a member will vote one way in committee, and then he'll vote the opposite way on the floor. And then they can say, well, I supported that bill. I voted for that bill. I didn't vote for that bill. Well, that's true. They voted both ways at different times. They can say that. So you gotta stay after them on that. They can be tricky that way.
Do they keep a list in the committee how they vote?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. They're better with floor votes. Okay. But yeah, in committee, the committee, I think, does keep a tab. Sometimes they'll kind of, they can keep that kind of quiet sometimes. So you have to be there to know. And you can see the vote though. You can. So yeah, that's another way to keep tabs on it, right? So yeah. So they want everybody to be on their side. If they have somebody, a renegade that votes against something and say that the speaker or the committee chair wants, that committee chair is going to make their life really difficult. They may demote them. Be paying for it. That's happened in recent years too, where somebody was run out because of it. So again, I said that quote from Dale Carnegie. When dealing with people, remember you're not dealing with creatures of logic, but with creatures bristling with prejudice and motivated by pride and vanity. Yeah. Huh? I mean, you think about it. If you have if you think enough of yourself to put your name on the line to vote, run for office, I mean, hey, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. So you don't feel bad. You feel good. So you want people to feel good about you too. So this is very important. When you refer to them, always refer to them by their title, senator, delegate. Not so much, certainly when they're in Charles, certainly when they're working. You see him on the street, you see Brian, I'm sure Brian don't mind, but when he's down there, hey, he's Delegate Ward. How are you? Mr. Chairman, how are you? So it's an honorific and they deserve that. So again, meet with them, call them, invite them. Okay, invite them. That's really important. Well, if you're having, say, a gathering like this, invite them. If you have something, whatever issue is affecting you that's on your property or whatever it is, hey, Senator, I want you to see for yourself the impact on my property, the impact on our community with this thing. Trees in the stream, we can't get the tree out of the stream, it's flooding everything. You got to see it, okay? They come there, that's big, okay? Because they're like, they're taking an interest and they're going to feel some pressure to do something about that. So yeah, invite them. But again, make them feel comfortable, make them feel welcome. You're not putting them on the spot, okay? We like to do that. Okay. We like to embarrass them, in public sometimes, or call them out, that just most of the time just is not a good thing. It's not a good thing to do. So tell them your concerns and the impact to your county, state, and the issue. Be the person they call for answers. Okay, that's really key. Again, you go back, sir, to you educated that person. Okay, so that issue again, if they kept your name, they may call you back and say, hey, can you tell me again about this stuff? So that's really big right there. They can count on you to say, tell me this. You were straight with me before. Tell me again, how's this work? How's this not work? So again, you're building relationships. So some things you see low bill numbers, that usually means it's a majority party bill and it's going to go through. It's an important bill. It could be the budget bill or something like that. Single reference, again, that's a bill that just goes to one committee to be voted on before it comes back to the full body. Double reference, again, that goes to two committees. Very rarely you see a triple reference bill. If something's triple reference, then that's usually a sign that they don't want that bill. They don't want that bill. One thing they've done this past year in the Senate, in Judiciary and Finance, those two powerful committees, okay, they also created subcommittees that had specific dates where they meet. Okay, so I would need to go to a subcommittee meeting to hear this bill. They would assign specific bills to the subcommittee to be worked upon because the committee chair did like that bill, he wanted it, but they saw some problems with the bill that needed to be worked on, which the subcommittee would do. So I thought that was a good thing. That's more democracy in a way. So they created the subcommittee to try to work on bills and fix them before it went back to the full committee, before we moved on. So that's something new they did this past year. And you'll see that again. I will try to make available Melissa and Steve, but they do have, they kind of changed when committees meet. It used to be major committees, Judiciary and Finance would meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Now they meet Monday through Thursday. And they carve out, I think, one day in consecutive weeks where those subcommittees will meet too. So it gets kind of busy. But anyway, that may change again this year. I doubt it. Probably be the same schedule, but I'll make sure you guys get that so when the committees are meeting. So again, Mike put on here, check the bill sponsors. Yeah, absolutely. That's important to see the sponsors of the bill. They're the main ones behind this bill. You want to communicate with them, talk to them. Hey, your bill's terrible. Hey, I love your bill. So know who they are. So minority party bill, again, the Democrats are in all kinds of hurting. Usually they're not going to get much passed, but there's something that's a good bill. It's a good idea. You're going to see a member of the majority party, one of the leaders, probably take that bill, keep them as a sponsor of the bill to give them kudos or whatever, but they'll run the bill that way. Most of the time, a Democrat bill will just not pass. It used to be just the opposite in West Virginia. It used to be just the opposite. The Democrats all the power, the Republicans can do anything. Now it's just the opposite for the most part. Yeah, if you want to know about whip, they're just trying to convince those wild members that aren't part of the bill that, hey, you got to support this bill. And what are we going to do to get your support? Maybe they're holding out for some kind of, my senior center needs $5,000. Can you give me $5,000 for my senior center? Okay, yeah, okay, I'll support your bill. So that's part of whipping. Can be, or it could be painful. I talked about the minority bill. It's a good bill. They'll run it. Yes, the majority party really controls things. Republicans control things in West Virginia. They do. So here's a number for you. 2,000 bills are usually introduced every year and 10%, 200 pass. That's about right. And I'd say on my listserv, I get close to 2,000. I do. They're on there. A lot of times I know this stuff isn't going to run, but still, you got to just keep tabs on it. And so yeah, it's there's a lot to follow. Yeah.
How does that pair with other states? I mean, is that an acceptable percentage?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think it's now, other states have different timelines. I mean, I like the fact truly that ours only runs for 2 months. Some states like Ohio goes year round. Now that gives them more time and more deliberative on things, so you can, if a bill happens, you can take more time. So there's good to that as well too. But I can tell you, like I know, like in the summertime, we start having my national meetings and things like that. some states are still in session. They're just like, oh man, I can't be here. I've got so many things going on back home. I'm like, oh, mine's over. That's good. But every state's different. And, what's a trivia question or history question? Which state has only one body? You know what it's called? It's called unicameral Nebraska. I went there. I drove out a couple years ago and I stopped at Capitol. So it's an interesting building. It's like kind of truly, it's like walking in a dungeon. The main entrance, when you walk into a small door and it's just like very dark down there. And then you have to move your way up to different floors. It's a neat building. And you get to see they have two chambers actually, but only one is active. I don't know. I forget what they use the other one for, but anyway, it's interesting to stop to see some of the state capitals and what they do. And, I actually got a call from the retired exec from Nebraska just yesterday about something he's working on now too. So it's I belong to a great little community. I mean, there's about 60 associations. In West Virginia, we have 2 that are affiliated with the National Association. And it's the County Commissioners Association, and it's mine. It's the West Virginia Association of County Officials. I represent all officials. County commissioners just unto themselves. And Commissioner Sheetram has been very kind to invite me here tonight, but I know in his heart of hearts, he prefers the County Commissioners Association Board. So, I just kind of live with that. Just kind of like, go on. But anyway, we have 2. So there's like 60, I think, nationally, and it's a great group of people to belong with. Yeah.
So that number is not.
Yeah. I mean, that's, it is. I think that's part of the course. It always has been here. Yeah.
Are there things that we can do to still?
Great question. Absolutely. You're always keeping in contact with, your representatives. You may want to have a forum, an open house forum to talk about your issue, invite them to talk about it. There are, I didn't say on the main page of the site, the legislative website, like in the middle there, you see these dates called interim meetings. Okay. Every month, they skip a couple months, but every month the legislature will convene back in Charleston and hold committees. Will have joint committees. Will discuss topics of importance. Whether like this past year, they want to talk more about the jails issue. They want to talk about the foster children issue. The reason being that they're trying to have these meetings. They're trying to come up with their own bills to try to fashion to work with these issues. So you can. If your delegation is willing to, so if there's something that's important to you, you can have a hearing. You can have a speaking a session during an interim one of those committees to talk about that issue, explain it, to present it. Last month I was in Wheeling, and the state insurance agency had their drug wholesaler rep there to talk about what's going on with the drugs in West Virginia. Affordability and availability and things like that. So that's what the interim sessions are for. So that's a good vehicle for you. But like I said, it's not a given that your issue is going to be taken up during those meetings either. Okay. That's why you've got to talk to your representatives and urge them to.
I follow a lot of the interim sessions because you can stream them.
Yeah. Right.
You can look at the agenda, see who the guest speakers are, when the item is going to be on, and stream it. I'm more interested in the energy side. And so what I've been seeing, because I've been watching for the last 2 years, it's mostly big business, renewables, batteries, all of these things, and they have a voice. They have an agenda. They have a captive audience, and it's like lobbying.
It's exactly what it is. It's not.
But
it is.
For the community that has an issue around energy, we can't get a seat at the table.
No, that's very true. That's very true. They have, again, going back to the money factor. The money factor. They have a lot of money. They spend money all year long. They'll host events. Obviously, at the meeting in Wheeling, the oil and gas, go West Virginia, and they're friends of mine. They're lobbyists that represent them as well as the wholesalers. People put the food in the supermarkets and things like that. So they were sponsoring a lot of events at the meeting at Ogilvy. So they would have like tours. They do tours and things. So whatever it is, the cookies, coffee, and snacks. That's their table. They're hanging out there. And but the good thing about it is, like I say, oil and gas industry, for example, I've been on the opposite side of issues with them. They're still my friends. And when you have a good relationship with them, they'll tell you what's going on. They will be straight with you about what's happening, what's coming, or want to know from you, what am I hearing, to help them. So it's not a totally antagonistic relationship that it goes on, because we're all doing the same kind of thing. We're trying to get along and trying to make things work for everybody. So, but it's like, again, they've got all this money to spend too on things, which turns legislators' heads where, I'm just standing there, raising heck about whatever. It's like, oh, thanks. I think it's going to make it a very limited and tame session by and large. I don't think you're going to see too many hard bills, too much controversy going on. Doesn't mean that some things will slip through. They will. You won't like, but I think overall, everybody's running for office or they're running for higher office. So they don't want any controversy. They don't want to make any enemies. So again, going back to your point, Annabel, about is it good to be by yourself or to have a group? It's better to have a group. Okay. So if you are powerful enough to convince people how to vote on things, it's huge. You're going to scare Brian. Brian's going to be like, I better do the right thing here. I'm going to be voted out of office, just to pick on Brian. But I'm saying that can happen anywhere. It can happen, more broadly. I mean, the oil and gas industry, for example, they can scare a lot of legislators because they can say, hey, I gave you X amount of dough. You better be on this bill or not. Or we will come out after you. We will spend money against you. Somebody's going to run against you. And we're going to help your opponent beat you.
At the end of the day, it shouldn't be about what's best for the people and where they live and what they have to endure, because that's where the unhappiness is going to be anyway. And it just seems like it's in this more of a corporate thing in politics of like, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, and blah blah blah. Well, wait a minute, and then they lose sight of what's going on.
That gets back to the first point, being visible.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that counts money is voters. And if voters are quiet and not visible, money will win every day.
Yeah, first off, what you just said, it's nothing new. Okay, it's nothing new. It's always kind of been the way it is. King Coal, right? They had the coal suite in Charleston for years. Crazy parties all the time. But that's nothing new. But it's just now today, it's just a technology where it's been failing a little bit this time, but it's good, right? You can see them. You can hold them accountable. You know what's going on, what's being said. They hide down there, okay? I'll be quite honest with you. They do. Because they know back home, they're not paying attention to what's going on down here. They're not paying attention to me. That's true. Okay, so if you do your homework and your due diligence things, you're following stuff, oh yeah. They're going to think twice. They're going to be very careful. It's just they play on the apathy. People don't vote.
What you're having to think about getting people not watching. Like, there's a lot of people just trying to live their lives. They're not going to go to Charleston and sit up in the balcony to fight legislation. I guess my idea of of somebody representing people, because those people are not necessarily capable, or even have the time. They're raising kids. They're doing all this other stuff. And it's like a little unfair to say, well, you're not there to do this, and they're going to sneak it by you.
Well, no, I agree. You're right about that. We shouldn't be put upon like that. We want to enjoy our lives. We're busy. We have our own lives. We have things we need to do. That's why we have elected representatives to try to do those things for us, to take care of it. They are represented properly. Unfortunately, because of the money aspect of things. And that really has been that's the thing. That's the game changer in a lot of ways. And it's only getting worse because they're able to spend a lot more money. Okay. The rates are being raised. I mean, in a perfect world, there would be no money in politics. There would be no fundraising. There would be no gerrymandering. Okay. There would be no gerrymandering. I mean, it would be great if you were able to, chat GPT. Hey, I'm sure you can set up a congressional district all across this country where you can create districts that aren't so crazy gerrymandered like, a crazy cookie, but you have pretty close to a 50-50 kind of, between the parties, people are registered, kind of 50-50, kind of slice there. So that representative, she's going to be nervous if she doesn't vote the right way, say 51-49, that 49%, it's a large block. I could lose a few of the 51. I'm toast. I better be careful how I do this. But what have they done? You see it across the country. You see congressional districts that are 70-30, both parties. You go down to the deep south, you see 70-30, 80-20. You go up north, you see 70-30, 80-20 for Democrats, same kind of thing. They both do it, and you've seen court cases in the Supreme Court now about gerrymandering. Is it good? Is it legal? All that. I mean, if you had districts that were pretty close, a lot of this stuff would end. You wouldn't have all this partisanship. You'd be like, hey, we got a problem here. We got to try to do our best to make this thing work. Okay? I'm talking Pollyanna on this guy. I know. But that's really true. I mean, that's the essence in the end where you want to try to get. But, it's tough. It's tough. So probably since the things I wouldn't say anything not to upset anybody, and I probably did, but I'm just trying to. It really is up to us to be more active. I always go back to a breakfast I had in Nashville a few years back with a couple lobbyists, and we were talking about the state of things or whatever. One guy said, the three of us here sitting at this table, we're probably one of maybe 5% of the country that follows this stuff every day, follows politics, and you understand the candidates, and we get in the voting booth. We're good. 95%, maybe 10, 15 minutes before they get in the voting booth. Do I like Elizabeth Smith? Is she a good person? Yeah, she's all right. I'll vote for her. I have no idea about how she votes and stuff. They don't. They don't. They're just like, in the end, do I like them? Yeah, I got a good feeling about them, So it's really that rudimentary. And so if, we all take a little bit more time and interest in what our folks are saying and doing, to hold them more accountable, might, help correct some of these problems too.
I mean, a lot of us just feel a little hopeless and it's we just don't what's the point can't have really a lot to say. And can you help us get past that and maybe there's an example of just that our democracy really works?
No, I mean, I think a lot of time it does. I don't want to sound all doom and gloom. And when you take a lot of things in, what I said tonight, sleep on it, tomorrow morning, you may soak in a little bit easier. Whenever you're confronted with a lot of information, something new, it always takes me a day or two to get comfortable with something. Like, I can't get my head around it now. I don't get it. I think I go back to one of those quotes I had in my presentation from Dale Carnegie. It's about, you just can't give up. If you have the facts and things on your side, I think in the end, that's part of the thing too. If things aren't working, if things are not working, your representatives better figure it out. Okay, they better make that thing work. They better. And sometimes we need to educate them about the fact that, hey, this isn't working. You say it's working, but it's not working. So I think in the end, and that's a long term kind of thing, but it is. It can get you down. You can't feel hopeless sometimes. My members all the time, they will say, well, they don't listen to me. I'm just going to have to do whatever they pass, and I'm going to have to, like an assessor or something, I'm going to have to figure out how to do my job with less staff or this or that or whatever law they put on. They kind of throw their hands up. There's nothing I can do about it. And I try to say, no, You got to speak up. You've got to speak up. You've got to tell them. You've got to say, hey, this is wrong. This isn't working. This isn't working. So it really is. I mean, it's that basic that you have to really, like I said, be straight up with them, but you got to educate them. And sometimes it is. Yeah, absolutely. I say, again, more power in numbers. You can have more impact, but you got to, too, you don't want to make a pest out of yourself either. You don't. You want to be there. You're always like proactive. You're engaged, and you're being positive. But you're saying, it's it can be frustrating. There's no doubt about it. But you don't want to be walking around down there with placards. I mean, you don't want to do that. They see as, what's this? I don't. And but you have to be making that honest effort. And that'll shine through. That'll shine through. So I'll talk a little bit about the NGOs. I encourage you to find like allies, not only locally, state, but nationally too. Okay. We've got the internet now. We can talk to anybody in the world, okay, global, about issues impacting that can be similar issues and how we fight that. So you're getting resources from all over the place. I mean, it's amazing to me sometimes. I mean, when the pandemic hit, I was feeding information to the governor's office. They didn't know. I had it in my circle. They didn't in theirs for whatever reason, so I'm like feeding stuff. It's like, so there are things you can learn, information you can find out in other places that you didn't know about. They don't know about here that you can, can use to your advantage. So that's what those groups are good for. The federal agencies, you use your congressional representatives to reach out to those federal agencies and try to be heard there. You've got, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, Department of Energy, FAA. The FAA certainly something with windmills. Certainly the FAA. You got the Audubon Society, and birds are dying, and bats. So they're very interested in that. Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Defense. You'd be surprised. But real quick story. I had a meeting in Chicago this summer, and we had a guy from the White House and Homeland Security, two guys, talk to us about watching foreign elements come into your communities, and they're like buying up land and building things. And it was like a two-message thing. We welcome foreign investment. However, you got to be careful where they are, where they're situated. I'll brag on my brother-in-law a little bit. He works for the Navy, and he's been following Chinese investments the past so many years, which is part of his responsibilities. He saw a pattern where Chinese were buying up properties near windmill sites and stuff, which happened to be close to like military installations and things like that. He's like, I think there's a pattern here, Sure enough, a little bit of spy stuff going on. So he got a medal for that. So kind of interesting. I'm just throwing cloak and dagger stuff to make my talk more interesting. Okay? But anyway, it was interesting. They had that message. We welcome foreign investment. Welcome them. We want them to be here. However, if you see something, let us know. So that was kind of interesting. Matter of fact, that talk we ran over on that one. I mean, there were just so many questions about that one. It was really, really fascinating. So that's something that you're going to probably hear more of a little bit. You probably will hear someone. So I put here, this is a slide I didn't have. I've got to add this to it. But the members of the Public Service Commission, okay, they're the ones already on the siding and things, So there's Commissioner Charlotte Lane, Renee Larrick, and Bill Rain. None for years. I really like Charlotte a lot. She's a friend. She's a lady. And she doesn't have any problem about the siding of the windmills, it's her role and responsibility, but she's not a bad person. She's a good person. She talks to people. She was a former delegate herself. She worked in Washington for several years too. I really like her. I have a lot of respect for Charlotte. She's a good person. Sorry about that. They had this power plant, coal-fired plant that was closing, and the Public Service Commission was going to go ahead and shutter it. And Mike went down there with a group, and it was, the thing was, he was like, they had representatives from the other side, the opponents there, lined up to speak and say, hey, you know, we're good at this thing. It's going to happen. And Mike was there with some others in the community, say, hey, it's going to kill us. You know, we need jobs for one thing. We need this supply of energy is going to be for a while too, because our prices are going to increase and things like that. So for them being there made a difference. So easy to call, easy to send a letter, email, whatever. But I'm saying if you're there in person, you know, be there in person if you can. If you get notice about it. And like I said, and you've gotta, you know, you pull up a Public Service Commission site and know when the hearings are going to happen too sometimes. And it's hard to keep track. It's hard to keep track of a lot of these meetings and things are going on. No doubt about it. It is hard. The other pages I added on there too were for your, you know, the offices for, it's not on there, but it's your offices for Congressman Mooney's office, the offices for Senators Manchin and Capito. Okay, so I put on there the DC office, the Charleston office, and the regional office in Martinsburg for them. They sometimes, what they'll do is say for here, most likely that's why I put Martinsburg on there. They'll send their representative, usually from Martinsburg, to come down. But you might get somebody from Washington. You know, fortunately, you're close enough. They may come over from Washington too, instead of coming up from the Charleston office. But yeah, keep in contact with them and see what's going on. And they're certainly, I think both the senators have really done a tremendous job of being active for us, right? Keeping in contact with the agencies and the issues that are happening. They've really done a great job about it. They've done it for a long time, but they really understand that. I don't know. Congressman Mooney, I don't know about Congressman Mooney. I've never met him, to be honest. And I've heard countless stories about groups going over to his office to meet him. Like say, one time a friend of mine, she took Future Farmers of America group from here, I think, actually, on behalf of WVU. Went to his office and he blew him off. He wouldn't show up. And she's somebody that's been around a long time. She knows. She was livid. Okay, but I've never seen him. He's never come to any of my meetings. We've invited him, you know. So I just, what can I say? What's the point? You know, I'm being opinionated. And I'm sorry, I'm saying my personal opinions here. But if you're going to be elected representative, you better represent.
So this is our second meeting. And first meeting we had about 25 people as well. And there seems to be interest, right? What do you recommend that we do to have like power and to have what do you see?
Well, I think if you have a what's your issue? Okay, what's your item or items that you want to push?
I mean, I think one thing that you know is we're concerned about the environment, and we also want to make sure that the planning commission, the local government, has the power to be able to use zoning and planning to protect us, right? And to work with us, and we're afraid of losing that power, and to have the local government weakened. So, so we do have issues, but we generally want empowerment as a community, so that no matter what issues come up, we'll have a voice. Yeah.
No, I mean, I encourage you to reach out and be communicating and be talking about what your issue is, your specific issue, and those groups that surround that. Whether it's if there's an opposing side or whatever, understand who they are, where they're coming from. Communicate with them. Okay. I think one of the things we don't do, I think that's the other overriding issue. I'm saying build relationships. The other key word is communicate. I think that's one of the biggest failings in our country and democracy is lack of communication, right? We got to talk to each other. So talk to those opposing sides too. Try to find that common ground. That's what they'll tell you in the legislature. There's a burning issue. If there's two sides, you guys better work it out before you come to us, because we want you to come with us. And we'll solve it for you, but you got to come to say we've got this agreement going on. Okay, so that really is key right there. I mean that's what they'll tell you. But communicate. Okay, communicate among yourselves. Communicate with the opposing sides. Communicate with the public officials. It's got to happen. Okay, I mean that's really, really the key thing. I just encourage it to, if you have more meetings, but think of those if you want to have other groups. I mentioned, if there are, you want to have reps from Congress here, if you want to have federal agency folks, if you want to have other NGO folks, talk to them. If somebody is, if the state official or somebody that's like, I don't want local oversight on me, it's I will give you the opposing view because we've talked about it with the Farm Bureau. And I understand it. And it's not just, it's many industries, and it's not only Western, it's everywhere. But they're like, I don't want to fight I don't want to have 55 different rules for my footprint in my 55 counties. So not everybody has that footprint, but I'm just saying that's what they come back with you with. Okay. We had a meeting. Melissa was so great. She gave us a presentation a couple months ago about zoning. Okay. I think there's 8 counties. Thank you very much. Again, I'm always relying on Melissa and Steve. Okay. I'm terrible at my job. Okay. I really am. Melissa, makes me look good. And Steve, they say nice things, but I was trying to find out, okay, how many counties have zoning? Well, she had the number right off the top of her head. Boom, it's this. Not too many have it.
Less than 10, there's some back part.
Yeah.
I think it's 8 or 9. So yeah.
I will say this, okay? I do think, and it's gonna be debated a lot, but I really think that local control, local authority is a growing thing. I think more people want that. Okay. And we advocate for it in the county level. We want more authority. Okay. We've got good people who represent in our county government, but it takes you to be active, to know the issues, know what's going on, and to make it work. Okay. To make it work. You see some quarters, there's like more heavy handedness, authoritarianism going on, I just, we all have problems. We all have obstacles we try to cover, but if you approach it in a positive manner and you're trying to make the best effort for everybody involved, there's that win-win, which I kind of hate that sometimes. But anyway, I just, my following this thing my whole life, you see our greatest leaders who we revere the most. What was the thing about them they all shared? They were beloved. I mean, they were not jerks, right? They weren't. They brought people along. They brought you together. They unified you. You got to be unified. You got to be unified, and you got to work together. One thing I didn't mention too. Okay, that's really we've talked about it all night, but you may want to. I don't know what your resources are like and stuff, but for your group, and if time's running out, but you may want to find somebody to be a lobbyist for you. Okay.
You mean Kate?
Yeah.